What's going on YouTube? It's Donnie all day. So I wasn't going to shoot another video today, but I decided why not. And why was because I was taking a look back at my Gerber LHR. And the LHR is a design mashup. It's with Gerber, but designed with the trio of Larson, Harsey, and Reeve. I'm a Chris Reeve fan. Like, I like Chris Reeve's designs. I'm not gonna lie to you, Larson I don't know too much of, and Harsey, I am not a fan of his designs. I'm a fan of he seems like a really nice guy, honestly, but I'm not a big fan of his designs. The blade, pretty much it's this blade on almost everything, and it just, I don't know, they do nothing for me. They're always gonna be the blade the same width as the handle, and generally there's always some kind of goofy like ramp up here, and this was and I'll show you the real design, the original. This was a design that I traded a knife with somebody for it, even though I knew I didn't like the design. So here, and I'll show you, it had a point. This was supposed to be designed as a combat knife, right? These three guys got together and said, hey, let's design a combat knife, and they designed definitely not a combat knife. I mean, it was more of a fantasy combat knife, like something you'd see in a comic book, than anything anybody would actually ever bring to combat. And I mean ever, right? So this, that's nice and round now, used to have this big weird, it came back, and I'll show you, and it had a sharp point on it, like a point. So, you know, if you're hand-to-hand combat and you are literally on the ground rolling around with somebody and you can get out your knife, you don't want them trying to push back the sharp spot. If you have your knife here and you're trying to go, you don't want them pushing back the sharp thing into your eyeball. It was such a terrible thing to have on a combat knife. That was probably the first thing I ground off. I did some work on this knife, you'll see, but I definitely ground it off to make this nice and round, to give it a nice even swoop. So now you can use it as an actual thumb rest for your hand, depending on different grips. You can use it as a pinky hold for chopping grips, and you're not going to jab your finger. That was the first thing I had to do. Next was pretty much the grips. The grips, it was like this rubbery, black, crappy thing, and it had the sun ray pattern where they went like this, but then they started going this way in the rear, right? And you never want lines going this way unless it's like a frag pattern where you're gonna have lines going this way all the way through anyway. But it went with lines going this way. If you're holding down for like a chop or a hit hard or something like that, you don't want your hand, a sweaty hand, getting in a groove that goes this way with the knife, because that is the path of least resistance. You want the most resistance you can get. Now you'll notice that there's different spacings, and that's because I did those spacings for my hand. I wanted where my grip was going to lock into those lines, and that's exactly what it was for. Is I did this for me personally. So yes, they are, you'll see these three are tight together, these two are spaced out. That's meant to be that way. That's the way I did it. And now it fits my hand really, really well. So next we're going to get on to here. Here was one of the worst things I've ever seen. And it had a hook going this way, which means it's not a blade catch. It's a finger catch. If you come in and you're stabbing and you hit somebody's, let's say they have body armor or something going on, either a Quran in their pocket or a Bible in their pocket, your finger is going to hit that little hook, and you're going to jab the crap out of your fingers. Oh, well, what if you're wearing gloves? Then it won't really matter. That's if you have gloves. Let me tell you something. My entire combat tour, I think I wore gloves maybe once. That's it. I hated wearing gloves, and there's a lot of guys that just didn't wear gloves. But having that curled back pointy thing right here, again, not for combat, not for anything where you're going to be needing to do any kind of fighting. I would never, ever put a point coming back at you on any kind of fighting combat knife, anything like that, where you're going to be down in the trenches. Next bad piece. Well, then there was this. Then right here, it had a flat spot. It was like it came in this curve, and then it hooked. And I don't know why they did so many hooks on this knife. It was so stupid. Like this came to an actual point. The actual point, I rounded that off. That did not need to be pointy. Again, that's stupid, sharp, and dangerous. You don't want pointy stuff on a knife that you have to hold the area that's pointy. That's dumb. So it had this big flat spot, and I guess you can use it to pull back and it would be flat, but unnecessary. It's better off to remove that flat spot, because now I can use it as a forward choil if I need to, if I'm actually doing some cutting that I might need to do, like cutting cord or cutting detonation cord, things like that, as like something, I don't know, you need on a combat knife. Very, very bad design in here. And it was too closed off to where you'd be able to put your finger in there because of that extra steel in there. Now it's just a guard. That's all it is a guard. So then there was another pointy thing. You had this ramp, and I don't know why they do so many ramps, man. But this ramp up here was like, it curled from this way to a point, then went this way to a sharper point, and then came down like that, and then in at this groove. It was one of the worst spine ramps I have ever seen on any knife ever. So what I did is, it already had these lines here, right? So what I did is I ground off the entire thing. I ground it flat to here, and then I just re-added some grooves, making jimping. And so I just made my own jimping. It is non-aggressive and super comfortable, and I'm not going to lie to you, it is way freaking better than the original. Speaking of the original, let's show you so you can get an idea what I'm talking about. All right, so you'll notice the difference now between the spines, right? So that would have been there. Oh, and the sheath was garbage. Oh, it was so bad. I did away with the sheath, and now I have leather. But look at all those curves, and that point right there, that is going to be here. If your knife rolls up, that sharp piece of steel goes into your hand. This sharp piece of steel goes into your hand. This sharp piece of steel goes into your hand. And look at that thing. Why on earth is that there? It's like a bird's beak in a point where you might need to put a finger. Oh my gosh. I was driven crazy with that design. And it was so ultra like fantasy, I just had to change it. Now, look at how clean these lines are, man. It is way better. There's a completely different knife. From hilt back, from where that little ramp is back, that's been changed. Everything has been ground down. Everything has been rearranged. The only thing that's stayed is from here up, which is a good piece of steel right there. Do I wish it was a little wider? Yeah, but oops. Does that matter to me? No. But I mean, this knife is so much better now. So much better. I gotta say, it went from a knife that I really didn't like. I mean, I really didn't like it the way it was. I'm thinking, who in the right mind? And I know Harsey is a fellow vet, and he's a fellow combat vet. So it made me think, how could Harsey want to put all these pointy stuff on a combat knife? The pointy stuff on a combat knife goes right here. That's the only thing on a combat knife that should be pointy. That's it. Nothing else. Just one spot. It's like the Emersons with the wave. I'm going to tell you something. The wave technology on an Emerson, genius. I hate it. It's one of the ugliest things you'd ever see on a knife. I mean, ugly, ugly, ugly. And the genius part of it, I believe, wasn't even designed that way, so it was accidental genius. It was designed to be a blade catch, a little tiny blade catch. That's stupid. It would never, ever be a blade catch in real life. If you're teaching a karate class where you're going like step by step, okay, you do this, and it's all synchronized, and you're going to show, okay, whoa, look, I caught the blade. It's not going to happen in real life. It's not going to happen in real life. Real life, it's going to be in, out, poke, 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 run. That's it. That's what real life is. You're not going to sit there and blade catch, and that's one of the things the CQT, close quarter, CQC, close quarter combat, that's another knife I would never use for combat. Ever. Ever. It's literally, I could pick up any, and I mean any. Here we go. Devo Growler. This is as much as a close quarter combat knife as any of the Emerson knives you'll see. It's got an edge, it's got a little point, it's got a handle. If you're talking about an EDC and calling it a combat knife, I don't know, it should have more than wave technology to make it a combat knife, and wave technology doesn't even make it a combat knife. So I don't know, I just wish people would word things a little differently. Like, I wish they wouldn't call this a combat knife with a bunch of pointy stuff on it. Right now it's a combat knife. Now I can fight with it and my hand is safe. My hand is 100% safe. I'm not going to get poked going this way. I'm not going to get all jabby up here. I'm not going to worry about coming down on somebody and having a fight and having that little thing, and then he's dragging it across my face and ripping out my skin. Now I could drag it across my face all I want. Yeah, no pointy thing. It's not going to kill me. If I come down on this guard, sorry, I know that looked bad. If I come down on this guard, nothing poking me. Nothing poking me. Nothing poking me. Nothing is going to hurt my hand, because that's what you want in a combat knife. Safe. Safe for the user, not safe for the enemy. You want it safe for the user, dangerous for the enemy. That's why this is there. That's why this is there. Combat knife, dangerous. It's like on a claymore. It says, the part that explodes outward, it says, toward enemy, point toward enemy. And that's how a combat knife should be. This part goes toward the bad guy. The rest of it should be nice and comfy. They should make it of pillows and caterpillar piss. It should be freaking wonderful. That's what from here back should be the sweetest, most comfortable thing you ever held. Can you have a little something to knot somebody in the dome with? Yeah, that works out fine. I'd rather have this than the K-Bar one, without a doubt. But I'd rather have it like this and not the way it came, all pointy. So the LHR, if you guys ever come across one, and you think to yourself, because you're intelligent, well, I don't know, that's kind of stupid. It's got all this goofy stuff on it. It takes almost nothing to turn that knife into a really badass knife. This knife right now is a super badass knife. And if it was like this and they threw in even whatever scales they wanted to, but it was just ground down right, or even a full finger choil, my cutter doesn't give me the ability to do that. I'd end up taking it out way up here, and that would way too much. So I can't get in there with what tool I have to make this rounder, to make it just a regular finger choil. But I made it the size of a regular finger choil. See how my finger is not touching that edge? So now by grinding out this way, I was able to create a full working finger choil. If you're going to have serrations mean you need to do this kind of cutting. Why have serrations unless you're cutting rope and you're going like this really small? But you know how hard it is to like cut like that and try to cut in like a 1.5 inch or 1 inch freaking area? You have to have the most mini little saw motions ever. So obviously the best way to use that would be to choke up and use it that way. Just another thing. They could have just kept it full edge all the way through, but they didn't. They gave it a little serrations. Do I care about that? No. I don't know. But this is way more comfortable. With this gone especially, it's really good in the grip. With that pointy thing gone, because I was hitting that a lot, my hands are big. So if you have big giant hands, guess what? That's going to be in there. On the thumb, now look at my thumb. My thumb sits right here on this made jimping, on this nice new jimping, and that is super freaking comfortable. I don't have that goofy thing holding my thumb like this and then creating a point at the tip. I don't know. What I can tell you, though, is with a little bit of tweaking, this knife is dope, man. This knife is dope. So I went from absolutely disliking, almost to the point where I hated the knife, to now where I love it. I got a sheath. It's ambidextrous. It fits in there perfectly. It's a quick draw. I get it out. No problem. If I'm doing something, I have my tie. I can keep it in there. No worries. In the middle of travel. If I'm going from one spot to the next, I'm taking it to the woods. I can tie that up and hold it in, and it's going to be very, very well, even though it's not going anywhere anyway. It's in there really nice, but just a little extra protection. So in case I go falling down a hill and I'm rolling. But I'll tell you what, this knife right now is super, super awesome. And the purpose of this video is to show you, if you have a knife where you just don't like something on it, you might like the whole knife except one thing. It's not a done deal. It's not like you can't get it off. Prime example. This thing is sweet now. So yeah, so if you are in a situation where you have a knife that has a boo-boo spot, get rid of it. You might end up going from a knife you don't like to a knife you love. That easy. All right, that's it for that one. I am Donnie B all day. Till next video.